I often think about recommending books. So many people tell me, people don't read anymore. Well, I don't want to capitulate to that reality because people ought to read. Reading must become an ever more disciplined practice for all of us. I'm sorely tempted to cite the statistics, but here's the bottom line. The numbers of people not reading the Bible, not reading books in general, is simply staggering. A full quarter of the population did not so much as read a single book in the past calendar year. But the good news is this. As with technology, all of us can get hooked on reading all over again. And there are so many benefits that it's hard to know where to begin. Reading improves discipline, vocabulary, memory. The list goes on, creativity, reasoning, relaxation, plus, and this is quite incredible to me, it can even stave off diseases such as Alzheimer's. More importantly, reading engages us with another mind. And when it comes to reading Scripture, the implications are simply staggering. By its words, we are brought into direct communication with the mind of God. And not only so, we have access to the minds of writers directly inspired by the divine. Thus, in the pages of the inspired text, we have mind-to-mind communication, mind-to-mind connection with minds that were awash in uncreated energy. Think about it for a moment. Some of the most engaging conversations that you could possibly imagine may well occur in mute communion with absent authors. The vistas, if you think about it, are virtually limitless. Reading a book like the book that I'm offering as our offer of the month on Wealth and Poverty by St. Chrysostom, reading a book like that means that we in the present can connect with the mind from the past, and we can make application to the future. By reading such classics, and this is indeed a classic, I'm engaging a mind from the past. Think about it. He was born in 350. I was born in 1950. That's 1,600 years. For some, it's even longer than that because you're younger. But the net result of engaging this mind from the past is a synergy by which you and I are equipped in matters of life and truth. During the past decade, I have been gaining great insights by reading early church fathers, pondering their thoughts, learning from their actions, and getting perspective on my everyday present living. A while back, I read a book on the life of Polycarp of Smyrna. He cared more about eternal verities than earthly vanities. The book goes back to the middle of the 2nd century. This was a time when persecution broke out against the church in Smyrna. By the way, that's modern-day Turkey. Christians were fed to wild animals. They were sacrificed to the flames. And Polycarp was their leader. And as their leader, he was a primary target of their pagan hatred. And yet, When the governor threatened to engulf him in earthly fire, Polycarp simply educated him on the terrors of eternal fire. Rather than curse God and live, Polycarp confessed Christ and died. Reading his story not only transports us back in time, but I would say more than that, it fuels a future faith. Because who knows when we, like Polycarp, will be called upon to stand for deeply held convictions no matter the cost. I couldn't help but wonder if Polycarp himself had been emboldened by the story of Ignatius of Antioch. If you haven't read that one, you should. Ignatius was one of the last church leaders. He was personally acquainted, think about this, he was personally acquainted with the New Testament apostles themselves. At the turn of the century, he was forcibly removed from service to the saints in Antioch. This, by the way, the place where Christians were first called Christians. He was thrown to the beasts in a Roman amphitheater. His testimony of faith in the face of a horrifying death has inspired multitudes to stand for Christ. I'll never forget his words. Allow me to become food for the wild beasts, through whose means it will be granted me to reach God, he said. I am the wheat of God, and I am ground by the teeth of wild beasts, that I may be found the pure bread of Christ. Along with the biographies of martyrs in early church history, I have been greatly inspired by reading the stories of modern-day saints as well. I think it was last night, or certainly recently, that I was reading the account of a man who survived the horrendous social experiment that Mao imposed on the Chinese populace. Some 30 million died in what was imagined to be the great leap forward into the heaven of socialistic communism. And I think, again, that accentuates the importance of reading. Many people today, even students, are historically illiterate. They don't know what happened just a few centuries ago, or even 40 years ago. They don't know history, and when you don't know history, you are resigned to repeating history.